So my reading goal for 2016 was to read 100 books, and I gave myself some leeway by allowing manga and books of poetry and plays as long as they are a full volume to count as a book. And today I have typed up my entire list to share with you guys. I'm not going to focus on individual books. I'm just going to read off all of the books that I read in 2016. If you want me to review any of these books for you, please let me know in the comments below. I will be happy to do that if you have any interest in any of these titles. So this list isn't in order of how I read these books per se. I start with just regular books, and the more I got into this, the more I realized that I didn't read a lot of real books. I read a lot of comics, I read a lot of plays, I read a lot of poetry, but as for real books, I only read about a dozen. So a lot of these I don't have with me because either I borrowed them from someone or the library, or they were for school and I've sold them back, or I have them at my parents' house simply because I have like no room at my apartment right now for all the books that I've read. So kind of as I read things, I take them back to my parents' house to store them unless it's something I know I'm going to refer back to at some point, or people want to borrow from me or something like that. And I go home. It's not like I don't have access to these books, but when I decided I wanted to make this video, I didn't have time. My list is the titles and authors of these books, so let's get started. The first book is The Graveyard Book by Neil Gaiman. The Seer of Shadows by Avi. The Teeth of the Souls by Steve Yates. I have this one here. This is actually the sequel to another book that I have to read. I haven't read it yet, but I read this one. The Secret by Rhonda Byrne. A Pale View of Hills by Kazuo Ishiguro. The Night Circus by Erin Morgenstern. The Prophecy of the Sisters series, which is a trilogy by Michelle Zink. It includes The Prophecy of the Sisters, The Guardian of the Gate, and Circle of Fire, and I did read this series. Escaping the Vampire by Kimberly Powers. 20 Boy Summer by Sarah Ackler. And The Screwtape Letters by C.S. Lewis. Alright, now we're going to get into the comics. First comic I read was Best American Comics. It is edited by Jonathan Lethem and Bill Kartalopoulos. The Wolf Gift, the graphic novel, the story is by Anne Rice, and the art is by Ashley Marie Witter. Persepolis by Marjane Satrapi. The Adventures of Jimmy Corrigan, the Smartest Kid on Earth by Chris Ware. Habibi, as well as Blankets by Craig Thompson. Fun Home by Alison Bechtel. Adulthood is a Myth by Sarah Anderson. Super Mutant Magic Academy by Jillian Tamaki, as well as This One Summer by Jillian Tamaki and Mariko Tamaki. The Sculptor by Scott McCloud. Hark a Vagrant by Kate Beaton. Killing and Dying by Adrienne Tomine. Black Hole by Charles Burns. Lumberjanes Volume 1 by Shannon Waters, Grace Ellis, Brooke A. Allen, and Noelle Stevenson. Soppy, a Love Story by Philippa Rice. The Little World of Liz Climo. Heart and Brain by The Awkward Yeti, also known as Nick Saluk. Seconds by Brian Lee O'Malley. Here by Richard McGuire. Lock and Key Volume 1, story by Joe Hill, and art by Gabriel Rodriguez. And The Greatest of Marleys by Linda Berry. Next, I'm going to get into books of poetry that I read. The first book of poetry that I read was Among the Gorgons by Michelle Bousseau. Bright Dead Things by Ada Lamon. No More Milk by Karen Crago. The Selected Poems of Mary Ruefle. And a short story collection called A Record of Our Deaths by Laura Hendricks Azell. Next we're going to get into the plays that I read this year, and most of these I had to read for class. I read Step on a Crack by Susan Zetter, The Arkansas Bear by Arond Harris, Hush, An Interview with America by James Still, Lily Plants a Garden by Jose Cruz Gonzalez, Still Life with Iris by Stephen Dietz, The Yellow Boat by David Saar, Medea by Euripides, Lysistrata by Aristophanes, Snow in Midsummer by Wan Hanqing. It's a Chinese writer, so I probably said that wrong. Atsumori by Zayami Motokiyo, Dulcidius by Hiroshi Vita of Gandersheim, Every Man by Peter Van Diest, La Mandragola or The Mandrake by Machiavelli. Last but not least, we are getting into all of the manga that I read this year, which is probably the majority of what I read. This is the only volume of Black Butler that I read this year, 21, by Yana Toboso. And I'm really disappointed because there's at least 2 more volumes that came out this year. But I only got around to this one, which this is like my favorite series, so I'm kind of disappointed in that. I read 12 and 13 of Dead Man Wonderland, which is by Jinsei Kataoka and Kazuma Kandu. So those are the last 2 in the Dead Man Wonderland series, 12 and 13. Alice in Murderland 3 by Kaori Yuki. I read volumes 1 and 2 of Attack on Titan No Regrets. The original story is by Hajime Isayama, and the art for these particular volumes, though, were by Gunsnark. I read volumes 1 and 2 of Is It Wrong to Try and Pick Up Girls in a Dungeon? That story is by Fujino Omori, and the art is by Kunida. I also read volume 1 through 5 of Ouran High School Host Club, and that's by Bisco Hattori. And then last but not least, I read volume 1 through 18 of the Full Metal Alchemist series, and that's by Hiromu Arakawa. And there are 27 volumes in that series, but I made it through 18, so I did pretty good. So if you were keeping track or you were looking at the numbers that I was listing off on the bottom, you will see that I did not hit the 100 mark. I made it to 83, which I think is still really good. So I'll try and read 100 books in 2017. I'm not disappointed that I didn't make my goal. I think I was pretty close, and if I had maybe finished Full Metal Alchemist and Ouran High School Host Club, I could have made that goal. But I really hope in 2017 I can read more books, more novel-length books. I'm going to be taking a contemporary literature class this semester, starting, next week already. And I have at least 8 books in that class that I have to read. I'm really excited to share those with you as I read them. I would love to hear what your New Year's resolutions are or what your 2017 reading goals are. Again, if you want me to review any of these books for you, let me know in the comments below. And I would love to do a review of any of these titles or series. So that's it. I read 83 books in 2016, so my goal for 2017 is to read 100 books. Thank you for watching. I hope you have a wonderful 2017. See you later.